Good morning, Doug.
Hey, good morning, everyone.
It's another beautiful Friday morning. You and I happen to have some commonality today.
Yeah, we are coming to you live from Murray State University.
We are in the boardroom. Doug, can you turn your computer around to let them see what, how
Yeah.
important we are?
Oh, yeah.
Look at that.
This is where decisions get made.
It is a beautiful day at Murray State.
I think the most beautiful part of today so far is Keith and I met for coffee earlier this morning, and we happened to meet up with a guy. I don't even know if the guy, suppose he's in college?
No, I don't think he is.
I don't think he is. And he's just pursuing success. And Jackson Dodd, shout out to you. He's a photographer. He's traveled around, and he I think shoots weddings and landscapes and anything you could ever want to have him shoot. But just the adventuresome spirit is alive and well. And I just really commend him for taking a God-given talent that he has and making some money with it and meeting some people along the way. That was a real encouragement to me.
Well, and what really encouraged me in that, Doug, was that he was willing to do that during the middle of COVID. Like, he got bored sitting at home and decided, I'm going to do something. And really, I think it's through challenges that people decide to do things. And so jumping out and going for it is a cool thing that Jackson did. That's capitalism right there.
Yeah, super cool. So that's a little bit about what we've been up to along the way. Keith and I, we had no intention of being here together. We didn't realize that. And he came down for a couple meetings and was able to speak at an event. And then I am hanging out with a couple of our sons there down in Murray for a bass fishing camp, which has been cool. I saw them for breakfast this morning, and they were telling me about this guy who's made $7 million in just prize money, bass fishing. That doesn't include any of his sponsorship deals. But
who knew?
Yeah.
Who knew? Did you guys know that?
America. So yeah, pretty cool.
Do you even know how that works? How do you, like, I can see how Michael Jordan did it. Like, how does a fisherman do it? Do you know?
Well, they were saying they actually said he is the Michael Jordan of bass fishing, this guy. And the way that he's done it is he just keeps on trying. They were telling me stories about his failures and how he just kept pursuing and going forward. And so I think that's the way you do it, is you just keep going for it.
Yeah. Does he have this like, that the bass like jump out like?
No, they told a story about how he was in second place for a tournament, and he had an hour left in the tournament. He cast his rod out, or I don't know if that's the right term, and caught a fish. The fish fell off his jig. Did it again, fish fell off his jig. Did it again, fish fell off his jig, until the last time he finally figured out what was going on, was able to catch this fish, and then won the tournament. And so even with failures, Michael Jordan missed shots, but he kept taking them, and he wanted the ball. And just like this guy, he just wanted it. So yeah, I'm inspired by meeting people, and getting outside of our scene has been encouraging to me, just to take a little break and step outside.
Not only that is, I think of the last 3 or 4 times I've been down here, I attracted the Weather Channel down here. So they had the tornado about a year and a half ago, and in the area they had 10 inches or more of rain the first 12 hours I was here. It was unbelievable. It was biblical perspective almost, with how much rain was coming down around here. It's finally dried up a bit, I think.
You told the story of weather following you here, but I had the chance to go to Mayfield yesterday. I drove over to Mayfield, not far from here, and I don't know what class tornado went through Mayfield, but it is terrible. Lives were lost, and I got to see some of the rebuilding while I was there, and Keith and I were able to meet a couple of the folks who are doing some of the rebuilding. And again, that's just people stepping up with their God-given talents to make life better for somebody, and they're making money in the process. And
Yeah.
so I was encouraged. I was encouraged by that amongst a tragic situation.
We even saw some nonprofits and work while we were here. There's I think it's Soup for the Soul is a soup kitchen downtown Murray, and they were doing some great things. Doug pointed out how that particular ministry was giving those folks in need a sense of dignity by just the setting they had there, and the welcome that they had, made them feel like they were basically coming into a restaurant, which was really cool.
Yeah, the setting itself was the type of place that you and I would like to eat at. It was just a really cool kind of diner type feel, and it was all for folks kind of down on their luck.
It is, yeah. They really loved them there. Well, what do we need to know about the economy, the markets, and the world in general today, Doug?
Well, optimism has returned to the stock market, and that's normally interesting. If you're a contrarian and you have a lot of optimism going into the stock market, you start thinking, okay, when is this thing going to give up some steam? And the market is made up of all different types of personalities, but they centered on fear and greed. And it's been interesting to see this year alone. We've had just a super bounce back of where we were in 22. So I'll go ahead and click on the markets here. And if you take a look all the way to your right, this is a weekly chart of the NASDAQ, and the NASDAQ, this is an index, and you can't just go buy an index like this, but there are groups that make products that reflect what this index is. And so as you can see when I'm circling, we've just had a tremendous run. And Keith and I typically we like to see something, keep my pen out. We like to see something like this where prices got tight for several weeks. And what I mean by tight is there wasn't a whole lot of price movement, and the prices were closing at highs. And then all of a sudden, power came in, and the NASDAQ started to break out on the upside. And so that's been very encouraging. For some of you who've been watching this show, you know that we like to track moving averages, like the 50-day moving average, the 200-day, the 50-day being this red line, the 200-day being this black line, and both of those are tilting up. That's been very encouraging to see. And so this is a picture of the NASDAQ showing strength. Anything to add?
Yeah, if you'll show them the 200-day on the left side of this graph, where it actually, when it tilts up, it tends to stay in that direction for a period of time. So just because it's coming off the bottom here and starting to go up doesn't mean that this bull market's over. It just means that we're at historically a really positive, good place to have some of your capital at risk.
Yeah. And again, this is primarily technology. There's been a few leaders of this market, technology being a strong one. Places where you and I spend money, and the things that we need, they call them staples, the necessities. Those have been a good place to be too. So that's the NASDAQ. Let's take a look at the S&P 500. And we were talking with a guy last night about stuff like this, like the S&P 500. And the S&P 500 is a collection of 500 stocks. These are really neat companies. They're global. They're probably in every country we could imagine. But this is a great way to capture what's going on in the U.S. economy and in the global economy. And as you all can see, again, this is a weekly chart. So again, every vertical line you see here, this is a weekly price of what's happening, what took place that week. And we like to zoom out and look at the weeklies just to see what is the trend. And the trend lately has been up. Again, we've got a rising 50-day on this red line. We've got a rising 200-day. And so it's been very healthy. And even though we've had an uptick here, We could have some pullbacks, but this is the type of strength that I like to see in the stock market.
It's amazing, Doug. I think if you were to draw in this little semicircle shape that we have over the last 18 months or so, if you were to draw a line in the middle of that, kind of flip it in half like a sandwich right in the middle vertically, you can see how near the bottom and on the way up, what I was saying on the left side of that little semicircle was that I don't like long lines. It's like the Disney idea of standing in line and waiting on something. Well, if you look at the lines, the weekly lines on the left side, on the downside of that, and see how long each of those weeks, that just says how volatile in a single week, like over where it says 41, 14, 65 there, and see those weeks where the lines are real long there. And then if you compare those long lines over to where we are in the last 6 months, the volatility is shortened out. And that's generally just the comparison of those two sides of that semicircle. It just shows you when is a safer time to have your money at risk versus when it's really challenging. And volatility is not your friend on the downside.
We were talking about the S&P 500 today and what makes up the S&P 500. Even though, yes, there are 500 stocks, but amongst those 500 stocks, there's different weightings. And so one stock doesn't have the weighting of the next stock. Like the technology group makes up a huge weighting of the S&P 500 right now. And there's going to be a shift coming up with the NASDAQ, where the NASDAQ is going to shift and say, okay, how much weighting do we want to give? Oh, my screen just went a goofy color. How much influence do we want to give this stock over the other? And so that's something that's always in the balance and to think about is how much risk do we have of a certain stock within the stock index. And so there's a huge company out there that makes phones that I really like, and they're an American company, but they have a huge weighting on the performance of the S&P 500 right now. And that's been the case for a while.
That was one of the data points I was reading to you earlier, is that 60% of this rally from the bottom on the S&P 500 is coming. The S&P has, I think, 9 different sectors that they look at, but the technology sector has been 60% of this rally. I think I might have mentioned last week how if you took the top 10% out of the S&P 500, we'd still be down for the year. And so it's a really deceptive market with those kind of things, because if you do take out that fruit stock, that was 18%, just that one stock. And I don't know, I found a display. I was going to show the size of a multi-trillion-dollar company versus economies around the world. And so if you're putting your hopes in a multi-trillion-dollar company, how many trillions are you thinking the value of it is going to go to? And so there's a lot of people that want to buy that stock because it has done well, but it's probably not going to quadruple from this point in the next 6 months or anything like that.
Good segue, shift over to the S&P 600, and the S&P 600, these are going to be smaller in size, still big companies, but as you all can see, again, we're on a weekly. The 50-day is starting to tilt up here, but the 200-day remains pretty level. So it's a different picture, and these are the types of companies that historically, these are fast-growing companies. And they just haven't gotten the market traction like the NASDAQ or the Dow or the S&P 500 has year to date. But it's starting to show some signs of lifting off, and that's been encouraging to see the market get a little more spread out.
Yeah, our dinner companion last night was talking about, some of the investment he's made in his business, and he mentioned a company called Shockwave, which to him was a huge corporation that makes machinery that he needed. And we just pointed out to him that would be the sort of company that would show up in this index versus the S&P 500. Probably most of you don't even know what Shockwave is, and I can give you a huge explanation of it. I'm guessing it has to do with some form of electronic signals. Have you?
Yeah.
Tell me about it
on my shoulder. I was skiing with the family a couple years ago, and I was showing off to my kids how good of a skier Dad is, and I totally ate it and messed up my shoulder. And so that My chiropractor friend used a shockwave gun on me, and it's basically like a very deep tissue rebuilding massage,
Yeah.
and it's pretty cool technology. It's used on cardiovascular stuff too. I'm not a rep for them, so you could probably Google and find out more. This is not even a stock recommendation. This is just a story of a representation of a type of company that's inside the S&P 600.
And they, even though they're called small companies, they are not small companies. They are massive
Yeah.
companies. They're just not multi-trillion-dollar companies.
These are the types of companies that you want your commute to have in your community. So mayors, governors, look at this stock chart and go find some of those folks to bring back to Carmel. But let's see, Keith, anything else you want to look at in the markets?
No, I think the market's kind of just doing a summer thing right now. It's backing off the last few days or last couple of days, but it's shown remarkable strength for the summer. I think usually they head out to the island for the summer, but the traders are still out there today.
Yeah, I've been really encouraged by the markets myself. I love to see the traction coming in for you guys. And right now we've got an opportunity because you have good interest rates coming in. So if you want to be safe, if you want to say, hey, I want to be a little more risk off, you've got more options today than you ever have. And then for some of you who are looking for a little more growth, it's been there too. So how do you like this Chat GPT filter I put on my
You're doing a really nice job there, Doug. And speaking of Chat GPT, I was looking at something this week, like when it all came out just 6 months ago or whatever, the demand and everything was extreme. We were talking about it, and I saw just this week that the demand for it has dropped to about 31% of what it was 6 months ago. And I find myself maybe using it once a month to look something up there to get some help with something. But again, my friend Oleg out in New York City said, really, Chat GPT isn't what AI is. Chat GPT is basically a accelerated database that can pull data in much faster than what Google search can.
Yeah, I probably use it a couple times a month, whereas before I think just playing around and having a lot of fun with it.
Right.
So, but it's been a great trend for the market. It's spurred on participants to dive into semiconductors, and I know some of you heard of NVIDIA. NVIDIA is a company that maybe you didn't even know about that even existed, but now it's becoming a household name, and that's by and large thanks to AI.
Right, because the ability to move data from point A to point B more in a more accelerated basis, you're going to take different types of chips, and the NVIDIA had really developed a place for themselves through all the things they did with the graphics chips with Apple over the years, and now they're jumping headlong, and they're part of what's driving the marketplace because they've increased their earnings estimates at levels that I don't think the market's been used to seeing.
When we show those charts like the NASDAQ or the S&P, you would find stocks like that inside.
Yeah. What else is going on, Doug?
Well, you got some notes there. We talked earlier about the housing market, and the housing market seems to have been slowing down a little bit. I was amazed at what the price of the median price of a new construction home is. It still just kind of blows my mind that 400 grand is what people are looking at when they buy a house. I don't know how many people can do that. I don't know how sustainable that is. And so that's on my mind. And then I come here to a college campus, and I think about the upside potential for so many of these people who are going to school here, and they're dreaming of owning a house like that.
Right.
They're dreaming of buying a new Civic. I mean, they're dreaming of having a girlfriend, and so it's all upside from here for all these kids going to school. And so that's the part that gets me excited. And even when I see economic data that it could be going great or it could be bad, the real potential is not in the data. The real potential is in like the type of students that we see walking around.
It really is. And a thing about the economy is where you're at any one point in time, you can get encouraged, discouraged, whatever you want about that point in time. But I see a lot of like the waves of the ocean coming in and coming out, and opportunities are created over and over again. And so if the housing prices seem too high today, there's probably a chance they're going to come down. Right? Like the tides will go out, and the patience part of it is where people will get probably hurt if they lack patience and they jump in and pay too much for a house that they just become part of the economic rhythm of the way things go. But like one of the data points I saw this week was in New York City right now, there's 71 million square feet of vacant office space. It's the record. And so what that tells me is that office space in New York City price has to come down, right? Like it has to come down because if I have a million of those square feet to rent, I don't want it sitting empty. I'm going to lower my price so I can at least get some cash flow coming in. Well, how the economy works is that somebody will say, you know what, I'm going to convert a million square feet of office space to housing space. So that'll lower the rents for housing in New York City, which then will create it causes a domino effect of things. If the housing prices go down in one sector, it may push prices down in other places. So no matter what's going on in the economy, it's just like the tide coming in and out. If you're an observer, it doesn't have to be bad or good. You can say this is what it is right now.
What a great opportunity for people too in the trades who we'll need plumbers, we'll need electricians, we'll need folks to demo those walls to convert from business space to residential space. Risk takers will be able to go in and showcase their talents.
Not only that, I don't know if you were with me when I was talking with somebody about that idea yesterday. And so one positive thing about the people at the trades is that Chat GPT is not going to be doing those tasks on their behalf. So it's a great time to be interested in the trades. Another thing that's out there we've mentioned in weeks past is that the IRS has tried to make the RMD, required minimum distribution rules, somewhat convoluted, particularly for the inherited IRAs. And they just qualified or clarified in the last week, they're not going to make you take out a percentage in 2023 if it's an inherited IRA this year. They didn't conclude that we're never going to do that. They just said for this year, we're going to skip it and we'll table it till 2024. So if you had.
That was some real timely advice. Thinking through last year, I remember we had these discussions like, do you have to? Do you not have to? You know, right. What's the ruling on this stuff? And
so it's not December, thankfully.
Yeah. Well, thanks for bringing that up. That's a really important issue, and I know several of you guys have RMD requirements. And if you're concerned or you're looking to take opportunity, just give me a call, and that we can talk about your specific situation.
Yeah, the All-Star game was last week. I didn't get a chance to watch it, but evidently the American League had been winning it for several years in a row, and finally the National League jumped up and took the crown away from them for a while. Do you know how that works? How does that affect the World Series?
I have no idea.
I think which it used to be whichever league wins it gets to be the home team for the World Series.
Oh, that's cool. So it means something.
Well, so like the last 9 years, the American League had that advantage over the National League. Whether you guys are baseball fans or not, it's a fun thing to keep an eye on.
Yeah, it's very cool. Didn't know that.
What about the lotto? Did you see that went for over $1 billion, and one winner someplace out in California won the lotto?
$1 billion. So some podcasts I was listening to recently that they thought a great use of time would be for elementary kids to the first couple of weeks of school, sit down and have to count to 1 million. Just to get an idea of what 1 million means, let alone 1 billion, let alone 1 trillion. And so imagine that if you were to just sit down, would it take a week, of 8 to 3 or whatever? I mean, and so to really know what those numbers mean is kind of mind blowing. I remember thinking 1,000 was a lot.
Right. Yeah, the cash option on that was 369 million. I don't know what happens to the rest of all. I don't know. There's some government math going on in there somewhere that takes.
All I know is all that goes to the schools to make them better. Just kidding.
That's what they told us.
That's what they told us.
They did tell us that. I was there. I was in the meetings back in the 80s, and that is what they told us. So that's what else is going on. I pulled out an old Gimbal article this week. It's called A Guide to Taking Keys Away from an Adult. And And what a horrible thing you have to do as an adult is take keys away from another adult. It's a sad thing, but it is the adult thing to do. If you've got adults in your life that need to stop driving, and you need a kind of a lifting place on how to start, give us a call. We can email you this document. We wrote it 4 or 5 years ago, but it gives some great ideas. It's not the most exciting thing to journey through in life, to have to help adults make adult decisions, but sometimes we lose our courage, we lose our direction on what we need to be doing. But to help those senior folks that definitely need off the road is a gift that probably will never give you a thank you, because they'll be angry and frustrated sometimes, but it's worthy of paying attention for the safety of other people on the road.
Can we spend a couple minutes talking about the best ingredient to your financial plan?
Go for it.
Okay, so Keith and I had an amazing conversation with an attorney last night who was describing a situation that it was basically dad was getting a little older and needed to make some changes in his life. And the financial planning industry has trained us to say, here's how you do it. This is the bulletproof way to do it every time. And here's the key ingredient that I saw in this plan, and I see in your plans, is faith.
Yeah.
Having faith. Keith likes to say, keep the faith. And you've probably also heard me say, hope's not an investment strategy. It's just not hoping things will work out, but it's working the controllables. And then it's also having faith and trusting your people. It's building your people, building your family, pouring into your family, letting your family know what you have, bringing them in on some of the details at the right time, making adjustments. Maybe you review this stuff. We met with a guy who reviews it every 5 years. Maybe you review it every year, but probably not every 10 years.
Right.
Things change, the variables change, people drop off. And so just the idea that with faith, you'll be pouring into others, and those people, they'll step up because they love you and they care about you. They want the right things for you. And none of that can be written down or put into a spreadsheet or into a forecaster of results.
That idea was reinforced to me yesterday. I used to be really anal about the spreadsheets and the to-dos and all those things. And then over time, I saw the futility in some of those things. And we had 2 situations. I met with a client yesterday and was talking through her situation with her. And the variables were too extreme to be able to really even give her a finite answer of what she needed to do. And basically I just said, it's going to work out. I don't know how. It is going to. And then the example of our friend we were talking to last night, their financial plan literally got to the perfect place. Are you ready to hear what the catalyst was? What caused their financial plan to get done exactly how it needed to be done? I mean, you couldn't have got their plan done if you had tried to get everybody in this boardroom and talk it out. It would not have happened. And what kicked it off was grandpa got scammed for a large amount of money. And because that happened, it caused a domino effect of things that got everything where it literally needed to be done. And I don't know that any other way would have got it done in such a timely and amazing fashion, which is that big faith thing. Like it's an invisible thing for which it doesn't make sense why that would have happened. But it caused that family to get in a very sweet spot.
If you doubt it, just look in the rearview mirror. How did this happen? How did you arrive to where you are today? I know you did some great planning. I know you went to school and studied and you did the best you could at the time and with the information that you had. And that's what will happen in the future for you as well.
It's unbelievable. It's a great thing.
This industry doesn't like us to speak in confidence.
Right.
But seriously, that is the key ingredient. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. And it's not only the key ingredient to take care of the things that you need taken care of, but it's the key ingredient to have that happen, to have a smile on your face. I hope you guys have a great weekend and can enjoy yourselves.
Nice to see you.